Several years ago, a man tried to assassinate Pope John Paul II. Unfortunately, the Pope survived. The man was arrested and sent to prison. Now, when the Pope had fully recovered, after quite a long time, he went to visit his assailant in prison and talked with him and prayed with him. I don't really know exactly what he said, but we do know that he forgave him. The Pope forgave the man who tried to kill him. And then the Pope left, and the man stayed in prison. As far as I know, he's still in prison. I'm not sure. We sometimes get confused between forgiveness and justice. Now, Pope John Paul II forgave this man, but the man stayed in prison. Because even though you offer forgiveness, it doesn't mean that justice doesn't have to be done. But we confuse it sometimes. We feel like, well, if I forgive somebody, that means they're not going to suffer consequences for their actions. Well, depending on the circumstance, they may or may not. It just depends on the situation. But forgiveness, in most cases, is for you, not the person you're forgiving. Because the person you're forgiving may not even know you're forgiving them. They may not be around. They may be in a foreign country. They may totally be unaware of who you are or what you're saying or thinking or doing. Now, in the New Testament and in the Gospels, there are several Greek words for the word forgive. But in Luke chapter 6, verse 37, Jesus says, "Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." Now, it's interesting that the Greek word used for forgive here is never used again in the Gospels. This is the only time it is used in this one verse. And what it means is release, and you will be released. In other words, when you forgive, it is like releasing somebody, and then you are released. Now, it is not releasing them from judgment. It's releasing them from your anger and your bitterness. Jesus forgave people when he was on the cross. It doesn't mean that people went to heaven, because we don't know what happened to them after that. But they would need to repent and receive God's forgiveness to get into heaven. So he forgave them, but it does not mean they didn't suffer justice. And again, we can confuse the two, because forgiveness releases you from carrying their baggage and their burdens, and your bitterness and your anger, which eats at your soul and spirit. You basically are living through them, even though they don't care. They may not be aware. Now, let's say you're walking down to work tomorrow, and you see Billy cross the road, and you shout, "Hi, Billy, how you doing?" And Billy just ignores you. Couldn't care less. He's walking past you. So the next day at work, you tell all of your co-workers how rude Billy was, and you talk about him, and gossip about him, and think of mean things to say about him. And this goes on for a couple of days. You tell your spouse when you go home, and you just carry this anger with you, this terrible person you thought was a friend. And so you bump into Billy at a coffee shop, and he said, "Hey, how you doing? We haven't seen you for a few days." And you go, "Oh, you're all friendly now, huh?" Billy says, "Oh, sorry, what's wrong?" And you tell him what happened. He said, "Oh, I'm 100% sorry." He said, I never saw you. I never noticed you. Otherwise, I'd have responded. Please forgive me. I was probably in a real hurry that day to get to the dentist's office." And all of a sudden, you feel lighter. All of a sudden, you've released the baggage. You've released the anger and the resentment, because now you know the truth of the situation. And you just let it go. There's an old story of two monks walking down by the side of a river. The elder monk, who'd been a monk for many, many years, and the new, fresh, young intern monk who was eager to please. Now, this monastery that they belonged to had a rule that they shouldn't interact with women. They should just focus on their relationship with God and keep away all distractions. But as they're walking past the river, they notice a lady in the middle of the river, because it was very shallow. It was easy to walk across. But this lady was carrying some baggage, and it was kind of troubling for her. So the elder monk lifts up his tunic and walks across the river and carries her baggage to the other side of the river and puts it down and comes back without saying a word to the young monk. But the young monk is furious. He's seething. He's thinking in his brain, what kind of a monk is he to disobey the rule about interacting with women? What a terrible monk this person is. And finally, the young monk could not hold it anymore. He blurts out, Master, Master, why did you interact with that woman when we are forbidden from doing that? And the elder monk turns to the younger monk and he says, I left that woman's baggage at the other side of the river. Why are you still carrying it? Now that's a great story that shows us the effects of unforgiveness and bitterness and anger. Now, like I said, it doesn't normally affect the other person if you're angry with them, unless they're living in the same house as you or something like that, or you meet them on a regular basis. Then they may feel the effects. But many of us carry anger and bitterness from people from our past that we haven't seen in 20 years. Or we have anger or bitterness towards a sibling and we haven't talked to them for 10 years or something silly like that. But forgiveness in that case is for you. It's not for the other person because they don't care. Maybe they do care. Or they're unaware of your anger or your bitterness. So Jesus says to us, forgive other people so that you don't carry their baggage. Now, if they commit a crime or something else, hopefully they serve justice, like the assailant for Pope John Paul II. And in most cases, people will suffer consequences of one shape or another if they commit an act against you or somebody else. But that is not the issue when it comes to forgiveness. Forgiveness is so you do not carry the anger. Now, you will carry the hurt if somebody was affected by the crime or something like that. That's different. The hurt is going to be there, and God will do His power to heal that. But the unforgiveness part is eating away at you, and you need to learn to release that and leave the justice, because sooner or later, one of these days they're going to face justice either from the court or from God, but they're going to face it if they haven't repented. So trust God in this situation and look at your own heart and life today and say, do I have unforgiveness towards somebody else or towards a country or towards whatever? Do I have unforgiveness towards that person or those group of people that I need to release the anger or bitterness from and give the justice to somebody else to take care of? Because that is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to me and to my loved ones. Now, if you liked the video, please hit the subscribe button. We release new videos every couple of days and you will be notified when one comes. On YouTube or anywhere else, you just have to click the link and it's a free video. So today, walk in freedom and get rid of that anger and bitterness. Release it so that you can now feel released and leave the justice to the system or to God, because eventually these people or nation or group will face justice. I'll see you in the next video. Blessings.